More than 2 decades ago, I found love and married a fisherman from Ketchikan, Alaska. He would tell me stories of his summers as a deckhand, stories of the fish he caught, stories about injuries, close calls, the wildlife he saw, and the friendships he made. To me, coming from Southern California, it was like a faraway land. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect to join him someday and to end up on a fishing boat in Alaska. Life has a funny way of taking twists and turns that you don't necessarily expect. Alaska is one of the most bountiful fishing regions in the world, supplying 50% of the seafood produced in the United States. Alaska commercial fishermen and women are individual small business owners who brave the rough Alaska seas and risk their lives daily to support their families and to provide you wild, sustainably harvested seafood. There are no fish farms in Alaska. Alaska law prohibits all types of fish farming. Alaska salmon swim wild and free in the unspoiled, icy clear waters of the North Pacific. Alaska yields nearly 6 billion pounds of seafood per year and is the only state in the nation whose constitution explicitly mandates that all fisheries are maintained on the sustainable yield principle. Salmon seasons are regulated on run strength and based on daily data collected from the fishing grounds. This method accurately measures run strength to ensure future stock. Limits are precisely calculated to keep Alaska's waters stocked with a continuous, ever-replenishing supply of seafood, just as nature intended. Ask most fishermen why they enjoy spending time on the water, and you're likely to hear the word freedom. Spending a summer fishing helps to release us from our highly stressful everyday environment. Nothing brings on the sense of being alive and aware to help rebuild our personal reserves like a day spent with nature. You are aware of each minute, what is happening right now, and what is ahead. You're free in the fact that you've just done something all day long and then you're done. When you wake up, you are on the water and in one of the most beautiful places on earth. You live each day at the mercy of the ocean. Your day is ruled by the wind, waves, tide, and the salmon. You are not living by the clock anymore. You're on salmon time. Watching the sun rise and set every day is a pretty neat way to keep track of time. You are cut off from daily distractions, finding beauty in the simple things. It makes you grateful. It makes you aware. In this way, you develop confidence in yourself and your ability to handle unexpected situations. Living on the water day in and day out, focusing on one thing. Catching as much fish as possible. There's nothing like it. It's a feeling and an experience that can't be explained, but I'd like to try to anyways. Our season begins long before we actually start fishing. Springtime boat maintenance includes bottom painting, welding, repairing or replacing any worn parts from last season. Once the boat is ready to go into the water, we move the boat from the storage, which is about a quarter-mile drive for the travel lift. Once the boat is in the water, we begin working on the gear. We will load the net, supplies, and all the dry goods we will need for an entire season. Everything we will need for a 16-week stay on the boat. We take plenty of ice into the fish holds to get us started. We leave our home of Ketchikan and head about 80 miles south to the Tree Point Fishing District. It takes us about 8 hours to get there. Sometimes the trip takes longer due to bad weather. Dixon Entrance is known for its temperamental behavior. We drop anchor, cook up a warm meal, and hit the bunk for an early start in the morning. The day starts around 1 a.m. with the roar of the engine and the rattle of the anchor chain. As we ease out of the harbor, the engine purrs me back to sleep. Moments later, I feel the rise and fall of the ocean as we make our way to the fishing grounds. In the darkness to the east is a bright glimpse of sunrise. When we arrive at the fishing spot, Ole makes a decision, depending on which way the tide is flowing, where to set our net. I get out of bed and put my rain gear on, and while buttoning up my jacket, I look around me and see the distant lights on the horizon from the other fishing boats. Ducking under the jellyfish-ridden net, I join Ole on deck. I take my place opposite him, and working together we pick the fish from our net as fast as we can. When the last fish is pulled from our net, Ole immediately starts planning where to set the net again. I take all my rain gear off and hang my gloves above the oil stove to dry. About the time Ole finishes setting the net, I have breakfast prepared. If the weather is nice enough, we will share breakfast up on the flying bridge, which is the top deck of our boat. Watching our net very carefully for logs, seaweed, and kelp patches. When breakfast is done, it's time to haul the net in. Depending on the amount of fish, I will either finish cleanup or help Ole on deck. This process of setting and hauling the net repeats itself throughout the day. The only change of pace is when it's time for us to head to the tender to offload our catch of the day. We open our fish holds, hook up the brailers to a crane, and our catch is lifted off the boat, weighed, and we are given a ticket with the pounds of salmon we caught. As we leave the tender to head back to the fishing grounds, I make us a little lunch we call mug up, something to hold us over till dinner. We finish our day of setting and hauling around 9 p.m. as the sun is beginning to set. Oftentimes, I will have prepared us a galley treat for our hard day's work. The anchor goes down and the roar of the engine stops. We head to bed for a few short hours before it starts all over again. We feel fortunate to be able to catch this amazing, beautiful piece of protein. Wild salmon contains omega-3 fatty acids, which are understood to be important for our health. According to many research studies, omega-3s are vital for brain function, healthy skin and hair, and a well-tuned cardiovascular system. We started a publishing business together that is inspired by the ocean and our lifestyle as fishermen. My husband Ole and I started LaDonna Rose Publishing as a way for us to communicate our life as fishermen, as well as educate people about a clean way of living and eating, as well as sharing our love for wild salmon. We are very fortunate running our business and living in Alaska, as well as writing cookbooks during our winter off-season. Our cookbooks have opened up so many wonderful opportunities to share with the world our love for Alaska, our lifestyle, and wild seafood. For example, in 2015, we were honored to be selected to take part in a culinary cultural exchange for the country of Oman to introduce wild salmon into their country. It was our greatest experience to date. The second is sharing this presentation with you today. Doing our job on the sea and feeding the world, as well as teaching people how to prepare delicious recipes, is something we are extremely proud of. Commercial fishing for salmon is always a gamble. You could have a breakdown that could cost an entire season. Our cookbooks give us a little peace of mind knowing we are not relying solely on the fish we catch to sustain us. Our hope is that commercial fishing in Alaska will continue for generations to come through well-managed fishing practices. We are fortunate to make our living in this wild natural setting, and we want to share that with the world. Fishing really comes down to mental toughness and being physically strong to make it to the end. The summer gives you the opportunity to sharpen both. Fishing in Alaska is truly a one-of-a-kind experience. I wouldn't trade these memories and the time spent with my husband for anything in the world. There is nothing better than coming back to town after a season, knowing you have pushed yourself to the limits way beyond what most people could only imagine, and you had an experience of a lifetime. The industry, the people, the lifestyle, it's all a part of who I am. It isn't worry-free, luxurious, or comfortable at times, but it's perfect for me. At the end of every season, I walk away with a better understanding of who I am and tons of great stories to tell for years to come. After all, fishing in Alaska is an adventure of a lifetime.